Right on my right is Mayor, Mr. Michael Bloomberg, our Virgin Islands hero and star, Tim Duncan, and our Lieutenant Governor, Potter. I want to first start by thanking you, Mr. Mayor, for all of your help, all of the support that you're giving to the people of the Virgin Islands. The Bloomberg family is really giving us a series of technical support and folks that worked with the mayor during the recovery of Hurricane Sandy in terms of having that experience and going through recovering from a natural disaster. And I'm just so honored and pleased, and on behalf of the good people of the territory, I want to thank you so much for that contribution and for that support. And I really am glad that you were able to come and visit the Virgin Islands and get through the islands and see for yourself. And certainly, you will express your observations of what you've seen and talking with good folks. I want to really thank our Virgin Islands hero, and I know this young man from the early days. They're all from St. Croix, Mr. Duncan, our star, our hero, for all of your efforts that you're continuing to do and raising money and raising supplies and flying them in and working with friends and associates to really help your fellow Virgin Islanders. And I really want to thank you as well and give you an opportunity to express to the media your observations and what you saw and what folks said to you as you went through the community today. Our Lieutenant Governor has been doing a hell of a job leading a lot of the recovery efforts here on St. Thomas and St. John, and I want to thank you for all that you've been doing as well. Mr. Mayor?
Well, Governor, thank you, and I'm just lucky enough to have known about the problems here. This is part of America, and while we've had big hurricanes in Miami and Houston, Florida, and Texas, we wanted to make sure that people didn't forget that there's another part of this country that was struck by a deadly hurricane, and the damage here is just unimaginable. I've talked to a number of people, but the one that I'll take back with me was, and maybe it tells you what we have to do in the future, I was talking to a woman and she was holding a 2.5-month-old baby, and it was her granddaughter, and she said her daughter and son-in-law had lost everything, and I pointed to the child and I said, no, they didn't. We can replace the house, you can replace the car, but fortunately in this case there was no loss of life. And I think that's what you have to do. People have to understand there's a road ahead that is going to be hard, but it is doable, and they have to go and build this economy back up. This is a great tourist place. This is a place where people earn their living by tourism, and so they've got to clean things up and assure everybody that you're safe here and that the island is open. We have to replace the schools so the kids can get an education. We have to find ways to give people, in the meantime, food and shelter, all of those things. But there's an optimism among the people that I talked about. Yes, they were sad, but I will say every one of them said, I'm staying, and we're going to rebuild, and the best days are yet to come. And Governor, that's your responsibility. I think from everything I've seen, you're doing a great job, and we're just lucky to help. I have one of my partners, a guy that started my company with me, has a house on St. John's, and if it wasn't for him, I don't think I would have been here. But he went down, came the day after the hurricane, called me up and said, we've got to help these people, and I'm going to stay down here. And I said, great, keep going, and we'll send some more people down, which we did. And then he said, maybe I should come down to really see it firsthand and be able to go back and tell people what it was like here. So the bottom line is enormous amount of damage, tragic in the case of losing lives, but an optimism of the people that the best days really are yet to come. And I'm just thrilled to meet somebody my size. I've talked to him, taking him on one-on-one on a basketball court, but he hasn't said no yet. Tim?
Just happy to be here and just kind of bring awareness to the area and what's going on here. That was my biggest reason for being here, to raise awareness or to raise money to make sure that this area isn't forgotten through this. And I want to echo a lot of his statements here, but I was really encouraged by the people here, even in the face of all this tragedy. People helping people, people with very positive attitude, and people really ready to rebuild. And that's great to see. And we're going to stay here. We're going to continue to help, bring in supplies, and help in any way we can to get everybody back on their feet.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Tim. Thank you very, very, very much for all that you're doing. And I'm going to continue to look to you for some guidance and support and advice as we go through this recovery. I do want to say to the wider community outside that the Virgin Islands, we do need help. We have a tremendous response from our federal partners. I must acknowledge the support and the commitment of President Trump and his willingness to come to the Virgin Islands and to see the damage and to see the federal rollout of support to the people of the territory. You can help us in the Virgin Islands by visiting usvirecovery.org. usvirecovery.org, and contribute. That's going to the Community Foundation of the Virgin Islands, where we're going to work to ensure that the victims of this disaster get all the help that they need in recovering and making their lives better and getting them back to a bigger and a brighter future. At this time, I'll open for a few questions that you may have.
Mr. Mayor, Governor, can you talk about just being out here on a rock 1,000 miles plus from the mainland, how much more difficult recovering from a storm like Irma is on a place like St. Thomas than, say,
Well, there's certainly no question. The distance does make it more complex. This is a wonderful part of the world, great vacation spot for an awful lot of people, and a great place to live. New York has a parade every year celebrating all the people from the Caribbean, and I have been known to claim ancestry from every single island in the Caribbean. They even include Bermuda in the Caribbean, but last time I looked at a map, it's kind of far away, but that's okay. In New York, we have big parades. Seriously, I just think what we can do right now is ask the federal government to come in and try to do some things on our own. The small contingents of the Army is here, the Coast Guard is here, FEMA's sent some people. They will come, based on my experience, and really help. It just takes a big organization like the federal government a little while to get their act together. If you're sitting there and you don't have a roof over your head, you say, wait a second, I don't have time to wait. That's why we've got to find a ways to get you a roof over your head, and then in will come, I think, the help that this government owes these people, this part of America, and you will see the Americans rally to here. Right now, they're just a little bit distracted with Texas and with Florida, but one of the things we can do, and one of the things, watch 60 Minutes this weekend, as I know all of you do, and not 60 Minutes. What's the name of your program again? Come on up here. This is the star of Meet the Press. We've got to know how to goad him a little bit. It's a different network. He's on NBC. Seriously. Meet the Press is I think it's fair to say, the premier news show in America. And when he talks about what's going on here, people will understand, and they will come and come to the aid of the people here. So.
I would just add this, that part of the reality of living in an insular area is doing two important things. Making sure that we reach as many people as fast as possible with making sure that they get food, water, and medicines. We were able to get folks evacuated out of the hospital within 2-3 days of the storm to St. Croix and Puerto Rico. We've been able to get those folks in our community who require hemodialysis twice a week, airlifted 197 folks into Puerto Rico so that they can get their dialysis treatments and back. We've been able to get the pharmacies up and running. But that's just the immediacy of getting to folks. And we're trying to make sure that we help our community manage their expectations. And this is a long haul. This is not going to be a sprint. And being on an insular area, it makes that somewhat more difficult and complex. But at the end of the day, I'm confident between the government of the Virgin Islands and the government of the United States and our friends and the corporate world and folks that know and helping the people of the Virgin Islands, we're all going to get this done and get it done well. So I want to thank all of you from the media that's here, that's away. Yes?
Governor, can you comment on reports of violence, including, I know you said yesterday they've been exaggerated, and
Yes.
a lot of the national media has been making use of those headlines. Can you clarify your
Sure. While we did have some burglaries and we had some ATMs that were breached, we've been very clear that we have not been able to establish any evidence or any complaints filed that folks were victimized, that they were robbed, that they were held in home invasions, that their cars were taken from them. We've mobilized more police resources and more National Guard troops on the ground. Governor Cuomo from New York has pledged up to 100 office state troopers and National Guard folks. 27 of them arrive on Saturday, and we will get them out. I thought yesterday's briefing with FEMA, when Mr. Vogel said that he was debriefed by the FBI who spent time on St. John, and they were speaking with folks, and folks were telling them about the looting and that the gangs were going around and what have you. And they started to ask folks directly, were you robbed? No. Were you victimized? Did anyone hold you against your will? No. Do you know anyone that was robbed? No. Do you know anyone that was held against their will? No. Did you see any robberies? No. Did you see anyone held against their will? Did you see any acts of crime, actually? And the answer was no. So we know that folks were scared. We know that people were concerned, particularly on the eastern end of St. John, when you find that the prison and the BVI was breached and folks who were serving life sentences for heinous violent crime. And between the BVI and St. John, you can almost walk right over from one island to the next. They had a right to be very, very concerned. But we've now mobilized additional police officers. We've mobilized MPs from the National Guard. We have Marines on that island. And with the officers that are coming from New York, we're going to make sure New York and Alabama, we're going to have some troops from Alabama as well. We're mobilizing them in St. Thomas and St. John to make sure that our security apparatus is tight.
Another thing I wanted to mention, when I came down with Meet the Press crew this morning, we brought down a whole bunch of medicines that were needed here on the island. And we'd called Johns Hopkins Hospital and asked them to put together a carload of medicines, which they then drove up to New York and made the plane with the crew this morning coming down here, and we took them to the hospital. And I think that will also give people some understanding. The things that they really need are starting to arrive, and people are making a difference. And I can kid about watching television, but if you do watch Meet the Press this morning, on Sunday morning, it is a show that everybody in the United States, if they don't watch it, they hear what's on it, the press writes about it, and that's the way you're going to get some publicity of what the needs are here, and then you should see people pulling in and trying to help.
Okay, well, I'd like to thank everyone, and again, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Really appreciate it on behalf of the people of the territory. And Tim Duncan, thank you again, and we look forward to continue working with both of you as we get through this recovery. Tell our story, and folks, please make sure that we want to let people know while we're in recovery mode, we do need help. We're asking for help, and we're asking folks to visit usvirecovery.org. In my office, I'm going to be naming an Irma recovery task force tomorrow, and then we're going to coordinate with companies and folks who want to send material and supplies and more provisions to the island to make sure that what we're receiving are items that the public need and that they can use. Thank you so much. God bless.